Hey everybody, it's Matt Shu at Upright Health, and today I'm going to talk with you about everybody's favorite topic, sleep. Sleeping, how do you do it properly? We have a lot of clients who come to us with a host of different aches and pains and other maladies. Their shoulders hurt, their hips hurt, those are the big ones, their backs hurt. And a lot of times people get a lot of different kinds of advice about what they should do about sleeping to try to help with whatever their issue is. So I just wanted to run through a quick summary of things that you need to think about when you're thinking about sleeping and bed choice. So we're going to talk about how the bed or whatever surface you're sleeping on relates to your shoulders, your hips, and your lower back, sometimes upper back. Okay, so I'm sitting here on a massage table, which is actually, I would say, probably a medium firmness. Especially compared to a normal bed, this is going to be pretty firm. There's only about 3 inches of padding up on here of foam, so it's not super cushy, and then there's wood underneath it, so it makes it not the best surface to sleep on for a long period of time, but it's not that bad. So we're going to imagine that this is a really firm bed, and if this were a really firm bed, there would be a couple pressure points. So if you are following along at home and you want to try this out, you can just use the floor as your super firm surface. When you lie down, let's say you're a back sleeper, you lie down, what you're going to notice is there are some major pressure points. You're going to have major pressure points on your sacrum, kind of tailbone sacrum area, and you're going to notice your head's not that comfortable. Hopefully you'd have a pillow to fix that. And you're going to also notice pressure around the back, the mid-back / shoulder blade area. But really, if you're a back sleeper, the biggest, most noticeable issue is going to be that tailbone stuff. You're crushing the sacrum, and the muscles that kind of go over the sacroiliac joint, those muscles are getting smashed to bits. So the glute here that kind of covers over that SI joint that comes over to that area, that's going to get really wrecked if you're sleeping on a really hard surface. So if you have hip issues and you're sleeping on something really hard on your back, not going to be great. Okay? Now, let's say I am sleeping on my side on this super hard surface. Well, maybe that would save my tailbone, right? But if you're lying on the floor with me right now, what you're going to feel is a pretty hard pressure point on your hip. So it's going to be on the side of the hip. You're going to be smashing glute medius. You're going to be smashing your IT band. It's not going to be super comfortable. All the muscles that attach to the greater trochanter are also being jammed in on that hard surface. Not super comfortable. So the other thing, if you're somebody who has some shoulder issues, is the shoulder is now getting smashed up against the floor. So if you have a shoulder that's always stuck in protraction, now you have a shoulder that's really stuck in protraction and really uncomfortable. So side sleeping on a super hard surface, probably not such a great thing. How does this affect the back? Well, you've got some bad stuff happening with your shoulder, bad stuff going on with your hips. It means your back is probably, if it's not already in pain, is going to be having to do some compensating with the muscles around the spine to help make up for your compromised shoulder and hip function. Okay. Another thing very specific to the back is, while you're lying there on the floor on a hard surface, a lot of times you're going to end up with a pretty strong curvature in the lower back, just because you're finding that balance point on your tailbone. And for some people, that balance point on the tailbone sacral area will actually put you into some pretty noticeable anterior tilt, and you start getting that compression in your lower back, and that is not comfortable. So those are all the things that happen when you are lying on a super hard surface. What happens if you're lying on a really soft surface? Well, the soft surface can help address some issues, but it can cause issues of its own. So let's go over those. So again, I'm on my imaginary metamorphosizing bed. I'm lying down on this super soft bed, and a lot of people will get these super soft beds thinking it's going to help them maintain better posture or just take off pressure points. Now, when we talked about the hard bed, we talked a lot about different pressure points, so it makes sense to start thinking like, well, how can I remove all pressure? If you get a really soft surface, however, you get a really soft bed, there are going to be some issues. And it's not really about pressure, it's about positioning. So, if I'm lying in a super cushy, marshmallowy bed, I'm imagining I've got all this cushioning, right? I'm lying on my back. What tends to happen is the heaviest parts of me sink down into the marshmallow. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, the heaviest part of me when I'm lying in a soft bed is going to be here. It's going to be my pelvis, and it's going to be where my guts are. That's where the mass, the center of mass is, right? It's where everything is, and that's going to be sinking down. Now, if that sinks down, because that's the heaviest part of me, that means other parts are going to be higher than my pelvis. That's why I'm doing this funny thing with my arms. My arms I'm holding up higher here, and my shoulders are a little bit rounded here, because in a soft bed, my rib cage is going to sink down, not quite as far as my pelvis, but my rib cage will sink down, but my shoulders and arms are not going to sink down as far. So then my arms are up out here. Now think about what that's doing to my shoulder position. That's actually causing rounding. It's causing protraction of my shoulder blades and putting me into a less than ideal position. Okay? That's one thing. The other thing is the pelvis is sunk down lower than my rib cage. Depending on how I adjust my body, this may vary for you, but for me it's really clear. On a really soft bed, my pelvis drops down and I get stuck in a pretty strong anterior tilt that makes my back not super happy. So, you just think about this. I'm sinking my butt down into that marshmallow. This is all raised up. I've got a big anterior pelvic tilt. So that means I'm going into a big anterior tilt. Shoulders are rounding here. Okay, not so comfortable. It's like a huge anterior tilt here, but then my upper back then goes into its own little kyphosis because my head is not as heavy as my ribs and not as heavy as my spine. So that actually sets you up for a pretty strong sway back situation. Okay, so lying on your back, super soft bed's got some issues. If you position yourself correctly, if you can kind of put yourself into a posterior tilt, it could be nice to be in a really soft bed, but this again depends on you. If you're in a really soft bed and you manage to position your tailbone in such a way that it gets you in a posterior tilt, then probably kind of comfortable for you actually. Okay. Now, if we move to side sleeping and we're just lying like this, or I got my pillow here, side sleeping. Same problems are going to happen with a super soft bed as if we're lying face up. The pelvis drops way lower. So actually what's going to happen is I'm going to be in something like this. So my rib cage, again, not heavy enough to get as low as my pelvis. So I'm going to be a little bit torqued, which puts me into a weird little, a little side bend in my spine that may not be the best thing to do over and over and over in the same position every day. So if you're somebody who side sleeps always on the same side all the time, you do want to think about what that's doing to your back every night for however many hours. Hopefully you're moving around some, but if you're somebody who sleeps like a brick, then you're just putting yourself into an awkward position all night. This, in a soft bed, it does tend to be less pressure and less annoyance directly on the greater trochanter, but again, you're in that weird tweaked position. With the shoulder, it is going to be less pressure on the shoulder, so that generally does help. It's still, when you're lying on your side, you are still going to be putting yourself into a bit of protraction, but you'll have less of that pressure to go into that protracted position with the shoulder. So, we talked about hard, stiff beds. We've talked about softer, cushier beds. What do I generally recommend for people who are trying to get their bodies to feel good? It's not magic. Basically, you want to find something that's somewhere in the middle that's comfortable to you. Everybody is a little bit different. The thing you want to generally avoid is the extremes. I have slept on really soft beds and I have slept on really hard beds. And I just laid out for you some of the issues that occur at both ends of the extreme. Some people out there may love the hard or may love the soft. If it works for you and it doesn't have any major damaging effect on your body, great, stick with it, stick with what works for you. But if you're somebody who's noticing, you go to bed and these things ache and hurt and you wake up and your shoulders feel terrible, then it's definitely something worth considering, thinking about how comfortable, your bed should be, thinking about how hard it should be, thinking about how soft it should be. So I hope this video helps you out, helps you with some, I guess, contrary perspective on beds. There is no perfect bed, just find one that's pretty good. And I hope that you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and comment. And don't forget to subscribe.